Hello and welcome back to The Motivating Force. Joining me as always, we have host Sway, an aspiring Marine Corps officer who's currently finishing up ROTC and working towards his bachelor's in the criminal justice field. And myself, Justin, a motivational speaker who's always more than excited to share all of our wonderful ideas and topics with you guys. This wonderful Monday morning, we're going to be having a kind of brief conversation here about the victim mentality. Kind of two reasons for this. One, we just got done covering the hero syndrome, so time to go to the other end of the spectrum for you guys. And also, a lot of our conversations lately have been pretty heavy on making sure that you don't pass the blame on to others and that you take responsibility for your actions. And what better person that doesn't do that than the person with the victim mentality? Upon all the research I did for this, a lot of the answers are really melodramatic and kind of vague. For the same reason that they just say kind of like, a lot of the motivational side of it, they're always like, well, stop being the victim and take responsibility and take ownership. And to me, that's kind of the same thing as telling a depressed person to just be happy and get more sleep.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work like that. It's obvious things that need to happen, but that's the whole problem in the first place. There are underlying issues that prevent those things from happening. There's the same kind of issue involved with people who have the victim mentality, where they're kind of more incapable of taking on those responsibilities and making it very easy for them to pass the blame to others.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of it where it's almost like childhood issues that the way that they were raised, it's always they were the ones at fault, even if it was somebody else's issue, that they were always the one blamed. So then as they grew up, they would always feel like people are out to get them, or the world's out to get them, that they're always doing something bad when they can just be living their life freely. And to somebody who doesn't have that victim mentality, it's easy to tell them, like, listen, you can just keep going on with your life. And it's easy to brush that off for somebody who doesn't relate with that feeling.
Definitely. You're definitely on the right track, because that is literally one of my points, to talk about the idea of the world is out to get you, which is a big mantra that gets played in your head repeatedly as you kind of have this struggle with victimhood.
Yeah. Or any type of struggle, even if you're somebody that doesn't have as big of an issue as that, even if you're just struggling a little bit, you're like, oh, what did I do? What did the world, why do I deserve this? And it's a little form of that victim mentality. It's not to an extreme, but it's something.
Yeah, there is always going to be a degree and a spectrum that almost everybody can fall into and find faults that can tie into, being the victim in situations. And it's something to always be vigilant about, to make sure that you don't fall into that trap, because it is very easy to fall into. And especially with kind of the culture and the environment we're around in today's time. And the first point that I wanted to bring up, where we kind of hold on to this mentality, it has to do with living a responsibility-free life. And here's what I kind of mean by that, because it's a weighted scale.
Okay.
And on one end, you have responsibility, and on the other end, you have meaningful. Okay? To live a responsibility-free life, take the easy ride through everything, you're going to have a very meaningless life.
Yeah.
And today, we see a big struggle where people are having trouble finding meaning. So it's almost natural that a byproduct of this lack of worth, this lack of meaning in yourself, is tied to pushing off responsibility and falling into a victimhood trap. Another way that kind of perpetuates this, that is kind of my personal take on it, is that you can fill up these holes in a meaningless life, or parts of your life that are meaningless, with short-term pleasure.
Okay.
And man, do we have a lot of ways to make some short-term pleasure.
Yeah, and that's an emphasis on short-term, because there's people that can be quick to change that to a long-term pleasure using the same, formula.
Oh, yeah.
That same example, they're just going to extend it to being that long-term pleasure, which then diminishes the meaningfulness of their life.
Yeah, it's taking that short term and making it chronic. Just repeating that little process there that's never evolving. It's not good for you. It's not going to take you anywhere. But you can keep getting those bursts, those hits of meaning, that hit that your life is actually worth something.
That dopamine rush.
Yeah. And it's so accessible in today's time that it makes sense in my head how much accessible and how easy it is to kind of support this type of mentality.
But when you have things like, I mean, you mentioned like in today's time in our culture, the fact that there's so many like eyes out on us at all times, there's so many things happening with like cancel culture, especially. You think that plays into the role to making that extreme happen, where people are feeling like everybody's out to get them, like any little thing that they do out of line could be life ending because of that whole aspect of the cancel culture. Like eyes are always on them, so they have to be extra cautious.
What that does is it helps kill your fire that's inside of you.
Okay.
It helps make you more docile.
Yeah.
You're gonna take less risks. You're gonna be less affirmative with your actions, because you're gonna be in that thought process of like, you know, the whole picture of it. What's the one little detail in here that's wrong? Where's the human error that's gonna get me in trouble? Because we don't account for those human errors anymore. Or we do. I mean, we put them on a big ass spotlight and get people's lives ruined for it.
Yeah.
And it's definitely an issue. It's an issue for all of our risk takers out there, all of our go-getters out there that are out there trying to make a change and make an impact, and they have to figure it out just like everybody else does. And as soon as they get something wrong, which is inevitable, they get shut down for it entirely. Yeah. Instead of being able to learn from that mistake.
Yeah, human error, and you have to be able to you have to be able to learn from it. It's gonna happen no matter who you are, and it's just a matter of, you know, being able to be resilient from that. And people aren't accounting for that in that cancel culture, that social media realm.
That's true. But in the same way that we kind of want to gaslight these people who are out there trying to seek that next step forward, that evolution in self-growth and self-help and whatnot, and just being better people, we kind of see more so a spotlight towards the opposite, where we take these mental illnesses and we kind of glorify them. And this is kind of my second point here, is that we capitalize on these mental illnesses. Quick disclaimer on that. There is a lot of reality and a lot of truth with certain like mental conditions that people can be going through. There's a lot of traumas that can happen in your life or that have happened in your life. And I'm not discrediting that, and I'm not discounting that. There is value there. But how much more of your life are you going to give into that for? Right?
Yeah.
You need to actively work towards a cure. If you have the flu, you're not going to ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist. And at the same time, you're not going to be like, oh, I have the flu, so I need this special card that I can have special access to these benefits and these advantages until the flu's gone.
Yeah.
It's the same way with the mental illness. It's exactly that. Treat it as a physical illness. You want to take care of it. You want to be better. So why are you going to continue to divulge into that flu or that mental issue you're having?
Yeah. But what's harder is to differentiate for the person going through that, being able to say that they are the ones with that mental illness of being a victim, you know, because when you have the flu, it's easy to go, oh, I'm sick. Like I can see it, I can feel it. But when you're somebody undergoing especially different kinds of mental illnesses, it's harder for you to actually admit that you are, you know, you're sick, you're ill, you have that mental illness.
And that's why I'm kind of saying, like, I'm not discrediting that at all, because in parts of this conversation, it might seem that way, but it's not. Trust me, I sympathize with you guys. I've gone through things in my own life. We all have. I'm just here to help you feel better and to try to help you release that inner potential you have and get out there and make an impact in the world. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm trying to do for you guys. So don't think I'm throwing anything out the window here when it comes to, you know, some of the ailments you have that might be going on inside your head. That's just my disclaimer on that there, because I don't really want to touch too much on it.
Mm-hmm. Good.
My main point is like I'm saying, that capitalization of it, where we want to take mental illnesses that people have and we want to make them feel special about it. And we want this drive of like excuses and reward systems that aren't necessarily fair for everybody else and for that person, because you're not doing that person justice by giving them an easy handout to cover up the illness instead of trying to cure it.
Well, it's like that extreme in the spectrum again. For years before, they've been teased, they've been bullied about different things. They've been in like this bad spotlight for so long that now, there's a little break in that error, and now we're overcorrecting on that acceptance. So now instead of just accepting and trying to fix, it's just accepting as it is with no change needed. But clearly we need change to happen for that illness. Like you were saying with the flu, you're sick, you need to heal. You need to work on a cure for it. So don't just accept that you have the flu. You have to accept and try to find the cure for it. Accept that it's an illness that needs to be cured.
It's like that sociology of it that helps perpetuate the victim mentality, helps keep people in this victimhood mindset, is that if you have issues, it's okay. You can have that. Mm-hmm. We're going to be accepting of that. But then that's it. And it's the complete opposite of what needs to happen. It's the recognition, then the acceptance, and then working towards that cure for it. Yeah. And obviously, like you're saying, it is, of course, more convoluted than taking some vitamin C and taking a couple rest days and now you're all better. Of course, it's harder than that and it's longer than that. Yeah. But nevertheless, you need to start working towards a cure for that. Yeah. And we don't focus on that in our society. And it's in the same way that we don't focus on the cure for this lack of meaning in our lives. We focus on that short-term reward. We're going to focus on that short-term pleasure seeking because it's so much easier to access and we can just keep going back to it time and time again. Yeah. It's almost like an unlimited resource, so why do you need to cure it? Kind of the whole part of that conversation there to tie that all together is why I think the victimhood mentality is so strong in our society today.
Yeah, but to give an example as well, like when you were saying the short-term pleasures, it keeps you going. And the example that I wanted to give was like what I talk about when I'm explaining how I go on my runs. I always have to have that little milestone. I have to go, make it to that tree. And then when I get to that tree, I go, okay, the next tree I'll stop. I get to that next tree. And then next thing I know, I'm just going and going. And that the 2, 3, 4 miles are going a lot easier than just taking the first initial break and stopping it, because then I'm just going to walk. And then I'm not going to want to continue running. But doing those little short-term pleasures is going to help push you to keep maintaining that track of, you're going to get those successes, you're going to achieve those goals that you want in life.
Yeah, I mean, that can be a good thing and a bad thing depending on what you're trying to take pleasure in, because a lot of that could be toxic towards your health. But again, going from the motivational side of it, there are things you could be doing to try to help improve that. Like a lot of people, of course, with like trying to find that meaning and who are actually trying to get out there and get after it, you're listening to us or you're listening to other podcasts, or you're trying to get more information and get educated on the topic of how to improve yourself, how to make yourself worth more internally. And then these are your short-term pleasures. These are your hits of dopamine that are going to get you feeling motivated and get you feeling ready for the day, But that's just to kind of cover why we have this issue prevalent in our society. And moving on from that, there was really 2 quotes that I kind of wanted to pull from all the research that's going on out there with this. And then we'll get into, of course, working towards helping you get rid of that mentality. The first being, of course, you already mentioned it, as you're already on the right track here. The world is out to get you.
Hey.
My opinion on that, and the first thing I tell people when they say that, I go, no one cares.
Yeah.
No one cares about you. It's a little mean. It's a little harsh. So I do want to kind of dive a little deeper on that, which I did. And I did a little bit of reflecting on that. And obviously, that's not what I legitimately tell people. No one cares about you.
I mean, but look at it like in the sense of people thinking that everybody's like recording them when it comes to like, oh, I have an FBI agent on my phone. Why? What makes that like...
They're not sitting there watching TikTok with you all day, bro.
Yeah, like what are you doing with your life that it's that much, like it's going to affect the FBI or government? They don't care.
Yeah.
Why would you have somebody on your phone all day long?
Getting into it more, and I was thinking, well, why do people feel this way? Why do people think that? And of course, one being the cancel culture, the society that we're in right now with that, but also the competitive nature of our society as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are in a very competitive state of being as a culture, as a society, where, you know, you have to go to college, you have to get the degree. And 20 years ago, you had an associate's degree. That was amazing. You were probably the first one in your family.
Yeah.
And now it's like you have a bachelor's degree. All right, I guess you could walk in the door.
Hey, no.
You know? But it's the truth, you know? And it's this evolution of it. Like we're requiring more schooling. We're requiring more extracurriculars, more pedigrees and degrees and just achievements and more pieces of paper to hang up on your wall to make you qualified for things. And it's just to enter into your field of work, let alone once you get there. So we're constantly in this competitive state. We never feel like what we're going to do is enough because we always have that strive to be number one.
Yeah.
And this is why people can think a lot of times about the world's being out to get you. And what I want to help people think about is there's a difference between people seeking their own gain and people who are out to get you. In the competitive environment, it goes back to that nobody cares. Everybody you're competing with, they don't care about you. They're not out to get you. They're out for their own gain. Mm-hmm. They want to benefit themselves and get that advantage over you, but that necessarily doesn't involve you because it could be anybody in your shoes. That's kind of my food for thought with that. Try to flip that coin a little bit and help people understand that if you are feeling drained in more of a competitive setting, you have to understand that it's not personal.
It's like when you take like animals and how their brains work, right? You take a group of gazelle in the wild, right? You have a lion that's hunting them, right? Each gazelle is going to be equally as scared of that lion, but that lion isn't targeting one specific thing. He's just going for food. It's not personal.
Yeah.
He's just going to eat. So each one's going to be equally as scared, but they're not going to think that lion's coming because it's me. You know, I'm special. I'm the special gazelle. So why do we have to do that as human beings?
That's a perfect analogy, man. I think that ties along well with it. You know, it's always just going to be the closest one the lion can get to. And then again, it's just, he's just hungry. He's just trying to eat.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing when you're in these competitive states all the time is it's not you. It's not personal. People are just trying to eat. They're trying to get a bigger piece of the pie. And you should be doing the same. And it doesn't have to involve hurting other people.
Yeah.
And that's something people need to realize. And getting on to the second quote that I've seen a lot when we talk about that victimhood state of mind is that no one understands me. Again, playing off of that being special aspect.
Yeah. Bruh, you don't even understand you.
There's that, but there's also, you know, there's a lot of people in your situation.
Yeah.
Trust me. There is a lot. And to think about it, and it's like, well, how do you kind of come to terms with that? How do you understand that? And I think it's because everybody says no one understands me when they're having an issue and they want to feel special about something, right? Because when you actually listen closer to these guys, they don't tell you exactly what the issue is, right? They kind of tell you, oh, it's hard to explain. Oh, it's kind of like this. It's kind of like that. But no, trust me, there's something different about it this time.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you don't even understand you.
So, of course, when people put it that way and you don't get this ultimatum, this definition of it, being able to recognize it, well, then, of course, you're going to feel like nobody understands you because you're not able to explain it. You're not able to get out there and recognize the issue and get involved with people who might share that problem with you or to be able to seek help the proper way.
Now, there was another point on this, too, that, I mean, I've met a bunch of people like this, that they are, they have that victim mentality, right? But it's almost, it seems like it's by choice, right? Because if you do know people that have that kind of victim mentality, or let's say they don't, let's just say something happens to somebody that's tragic, right? People give sympathy to that, right? So then it kind of like makes them feel better. Now we take somebody who's an extreme of that victim mentality and they're trying to get as much sympathy as possible so then they can just feel better for being a terrible human being. That's a little bit different, but that still falls under that victim mentality. because there's a show, What We Do in the Shadows, shout out, that they have like an empath vampire, and that's how they feed, is off that sympathy. So they're trying to get that victim mentality going all the time, so then people are just flocking to them with sympathy, and they're just consuming all that, like that ego, trying to just feel better about themselves. What do you think on people that choose to have that victim mentality? Because then that can quickly evolve into a very debilitating illness.
Well, I think you got to stop reading my notes, man, and stop reading my research, because
I can't
exactly
even read that.
where I was going.
I can't even read that.
I know. But yeah, that's perfectly in line with where that conversation was going, though. Because that is my point too, is that they're not actually looking for help or to help others. They're kind of looking just to receive rewards for being a victim.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is pretty much what you're saying here. As soon as they get the empathy, as soon as they get the rewards, they're like, oh, well, that feels nice. That didn't take much work. All I had to do was, be a little about it for a second, right?
Beep.
And in the long run, of course, it's toxic, it's negative. It's not going to add meaning to your life.
No.
It's not going to make you feel fulfilled, because you're not accomplishing anything. You're getting the reward before you put in the work.
Yeah.
And if you ever wanted to see a really depressed person who does not have their life figured out, and they're struggling, and they have really, really nice things, go and look at any trust fund baby. They are not happy people.
Yeah.
If you actually go and look into it and look into the research, there's a staggering amount of depression, drug abuse, suicides involved with these millionaires. And it's like, well, why is that a case? Which is why it's such a big study, right? Because isn't that what we all work for? And it's like, they got the reward before the work.
Yeah.
The pleasure is in the work. The reward is what you get to sleep on when you're done.
Yeah. It's
So,
like being that leech that we were talking about in previous episodes. You're just sucking the life out of all these people, and then they're just going to leave you high and dry, because what are you contributing to that relationship? They're actually giving you that time and energy and that sympathy and emotional, connection, but you're just grabbing everything you can because you're the victim. You're going to lose so many relationships because of that.
Oh yeah, that's where that toxicity comes into play, because that's the first point, right? You're getting the reward without putting work into it, so you're never going to be satisfied with what you get. There's never going to be an end goal there, so you're going to still have that search for meaning, that just lack of fulfillment in your life if you go through living your life in a victim mentality day in and day out. And then of course, as you get older and you start straining those resources dry, and you get all the emotion out of people, and you get all the resources out of people, especially for leeching money, and I need help with this because my kid had the sniffles, so I had to take a week off of work and pat him on the head 24/7, and now I can't pay my rent. I think you could help me out this month. And you just keep doing little things like that. Give it a couple years, your friends and family are going to diminish, and then by the time, before you even realize it,
your money's going to diminish.
There's going to be nobody left to support you, and you're going to have nothing going for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's the truth. That victimhood mentality is going to leave you cold and alone, broke, meaningless. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing. And this might be more of a scare factor than it is a motivation for people. That's the reality of it.
Well, I think it is a scare factor that needs to be implemented, because a lot of people do have this, and we just need them to admit that they do have it and work towards bettering themselves. Because like I said, that it's hard to admit your faults, period. But when it comes to a mental illness, it's harder to admit that, because you have no physical proof of it besides just like what we're talking about, that leeching, the lack of drive in your the scales, the meaningless, because the responsibilities and all that. And it's, people need to understand that you can all be part of this victim mentality. You just need to work on being proactive and avoiding that. You need to be understanding that the world is going to happen the way it happens, and it's not because it's you, but that's life. It's not targeting you specifically.
And I mean, that's got to be the worst thing that it's going to do for your character, because it gives you that lack of control in your life. And even over the things you're supposed to have control over, the things you do have control over, you play the victim card on those things to get the reward because you were feeling lazy or something. And now, because of that, you lose control over that thing you did have control over. You're just driving your life down this endless slope of chaos, you know? And like we said at the beginning of the show, or kind of suggested at the beginning of the show today, was that your victim mentality can almost be on a spectrum. It can kind of be on a rating thing where, of course, you might not be the extremist with it, but there are going to be times where you're like, oh no, these things that happened to me, there's no way I had any control or responsibility over that. And although that might be true, you don't have to play the victim card.
Yeah.
But it's very easy for you to do that once in a while.
Yeah. It's harder to accept it and actually act on changing that than to just brush it off like, yeah, I didn't have any control over it, but you have control over it now.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to say.
Yeah. As I say, is like, 80% of your life is based off of reaction. So you can take everything that comes your way, and whether it's positive or negative, and you're getting hit with more negative lately, it's your reaction that matters. And to sit there and play the victim card and go, oh, boo-hoo, these things were out of my control. Although that might be true, it's not the way to go. It's not the way to take ownership of your life and have control over the things that you can have control over and just be a better person and get those achievements you're trying to get. But getting back on pace here, I did say, we were going to get into a couple pointers here that I'd have to help people try to escape this mentality. And the first thing is of course, taking hold of your life. And we can start small with that. And I think if you are more on the extreme end of this, taking responsibility is really the first course of action, because the biggest course of action you need to take. And start simple. Start with the space that you live in and make it your responsibility to make sure that space stays as clean as possible. Be responsible for every can of soda left out, every bag of food, bag of chips left out, dust on the floor, dust on the ceiling fan. Make it your personal responsibility to take action towards that and put some mental effort into it. And it might seem stupid, but trust me, it's simple enough that you'll be able to accomplish that. And then every day when you come home and you get this nice, clean, tidy environment you're in, you know that you did that.
Yeah.
And you're starting to see that you can make changes in your life. And we're going to start by doing that in something that you're going to see every single day.
It's almost like it's a mix of pointers from Extreme Ownership by Jocko and the Make Your Bed by Admiral McRaven there. Because it's almost like that's what they're preaching. You have to take ownership of each thing in your life. And best way to start that is by starting small. And then having that clean environment at the end of your day. You're having a long, tough day. You're working hard. Then you come home to this clean environment. It's going to feel so much better on your mental health at the end of the day, because you don't have all that clutter. You don't have this mess that you have to deal with on top of having a long day.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. So there you go. There'd be 2 good books for you to pick up on if you're struggling with this. Go read Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, and go pick up How to Make Your Bed by Admiral McRaven. Be 2 things to get you off on the right step, for sure. My last point on that is stop seeking retribution and start seeking help. And I want to make this a point because for people actively trying to escape this mentality, you're going to have kind of a muddy water between the differences of retribution and help. You already play this facade of seeking help, but you're not trying to receive help. You're trying to receive a reward.
You're receiving that sympathy. You're not receiving the actual help to make the change needed to stop being the victim.
Yeah. And the 2 differences here that I want to point out when we're going to try to actually start getting things from people that are going to be productive for you is that retribution requires no action on your part, and it's strictly a reward system. It's saying you deserve something based off of the ill intentions of others or the harm that others have caused.
Or could cause.
Or could cause.
That you believe, you believe.
And then the help requires your action, because help from somebody isn't completed until you act upon it. So if somebody says they're going to help you with it, you have to be actively involved in that and it's going to take you time and effort. The only nice thing is somebody's going to be there along the way for you.
Right.
So start recognizing that when you're getting that and appreciate that. And it's going to help move you forward and help get rid of this illness that we kind of all have to a varying degree.
Yeah, it's human nature, like you said, to a degree, but it's just up to us to acknowledge when we have to shift gears and put that to the side. It's okay to, every once in a while think that you did something wrong, or, it's because you're some type of special, but don't always think that, because that's gonna just make you the most toxic person in your environment.
But to allow you guys to be able to hang on to the sense of feeling special and being involved with a community that'll actually help you, you've got all that right here. All we ask for you to do is like and subscribe, share the video, of course. Head over to the social medias. We got Facebook, we got Parler, we got Instagram. All those links are down below. We post content there regularly. We're always more than happy to see new DMs come in and new messages. We love interacting with you guys, and we'll be here to help you. That's what we love doing.
We're looking forward to see you guys this Wednesday. We're going to be taking a break from all this motivational stuff for you, and we're going to be on a lighter note where we're talking about religion, spirituality, maybe aliens. But we're looking forward to see you there. All of our episodes come out Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 a.m. EST.
And until next time, go on and get